They are the remotest of nations, the most just of men, the favorite of the gods. The lofty inhabitants of Olympus journeyed to them to take part in their feasts. Their sacrifices are the most agreeable of all that mortals can offer them. This is how Homer described the Nubians around 3,000 years ago, an African people who lived along the banks of the River Nile. When I was growing up, I used to hear people in my neighborhood talking about black pharaohs. We called them Nubians. I never dreamed that there was an actual place called Nubia. It seemed more like a fairy tale to me. I'm in Cairo at the beginning of my journey in search of ancient Nubia. From here, I'm heading south along the Nile to Aswan, Egypt's southernmost city where Nubia begins. Then I'll cross over into the Sudan and travel to the heart of the ancient black kingdoms of the Nile. Egypt is the only ancient African civilization most people have heard of. Nobody knows anything at all about Nubia. I've wanted to see the pyramids since I was a child, and it's taken me 40 years to get here. I can see why people are obsessed with this place. This extraordinary royal tomb was built for an Egyptian pharaoh 4,500 years ago. Egypt has become a place of pilgrimage for African Americans trying to rediscover their identity. And for many of us, Nubia is just a black word for Egypt. So why have you come to Egypt?
I think for me, it's just been a dream come true, and then trying to make a connection to a historical past that we've been misled about all this time. And so,
What do you mean we?
Oh, I mean I say in terms of African American people, when we look at the history of Egypt, we've always been told that Egypt is out of Africa, not a part of Africa, and to actually be on the continent for me is just a really a big thrill.
When we were growing up, though, in school, all the pharaohs looked like white guys. I mean, they could have been from Milwaukee or someplace, or Minnesota like you are. But what was that about?
I think it was to continually enslave us. I come to get a sense of my history, and not the history that was given as African American in America by the Europeans.
Mm-hmm. Well, who do you think built the pyramids?
I think Africans built the pyramids. I grew up believing that they were European, or they looked like Europeans. They were white, you know, the Cecil B. DeMille story. And I think they were Nubians, which is dark skin.
About your color, darker?
I think all shades. Mm-hmm. I think all shades. Just like African Americans, we come in a lot of,
Just like this group?
Yeah, exactly.
Back home, the real Nubians have got lost in a debate about the color and origins of the ancient Egyptians. But 400 miles south of here, there is still a real place called Nubia, the home of an ancient African civilization that was definitely black. How much a t-shirt? 5 pounds? Too much. I want the Nubian price. I'm a Nubian. I'm taking the night train from Cairo to Aswan. Once, all the land along the Nile, south of Aswan as far as Khartoum in the Sudan, belonged to Nubia. It still exists, but now it's just a region split in two by the border between Egypt and Sudan. I was hoping there was another room in there. Well, it's cozy. African Americans are obsessed with Nubia. There must be 1,000 shops in America with the name Nubia in the title. My favorite, my daughter's favorite, is a shop called Nubia Notions. But believe me, there are a whole lot more. When I was applying to Yale, the first sentence of my application said, my grandfather is colored, my father is a Negro, and I am black. Now my daughters are African Americans. Their kids, I bet, will be Neo-Nubians. You know, if we can't tell exactly what the color of the Egyptian pharaohs were, the one thing we do know is that the Nubian pharaohs were black people. And now, having heard about Nubians almost all my life, I'm on a train heading south to the land of Nubia. I'm embarrassed to admit that I know so very little about the real Nubians. But the ancient Greeks and the Romans knew the Nubians. Magical tales about this distant African people traveled back along the trade routes to Europe. And one of the Nubian kings, named Taharka, is even mentioned in the Bible. My search starts here at the temple of Abu Simbel. It turns out that this great Egyptian monument is in fact in Nubia, built at a time when the ancient Egyptians ruled it. Most Egyptologists aren't that interested in Nubia, but I found one who's passionate about it. Bassam el-Shama thinks that Nubian history has been ignored for far too long.
Ramesses II, about 1250 BC, a man who ruled our country for about 66 years and 2 months, because that's documented, actually decided him and his very dedicated workers to come here and carve, hewn off the cliffs, a temple dedicated to the Nubian deities. Huh. Normally, in temples of Ramesses and other pharaohs, you would find a very typical classic scene of the pharaoh smiting his captives of war using a mace head, and that's showing his domain and his vigorosity. But in this temple, as I'm going to show you now, we found the facial features of the statues, which was hewn off the cliffs, especially the family that he is introducing to the Nubian brothers and sisters. He's showing his mother, he's showing his daughters. And one of the best examples of this is Our Lady here. First of all, we notice how the facial features are typically Nubian. And then you've got the hairstyle, the Nubian style, the Afro style. And that, of course, the style that all the queens of Egypt wanted to be in the afterlife. And we know that the Nubians were always referred to in ancient Egypt as a sign of beauty. One of the ancient lyrics go, I wish my lover was a Nubian. So that is exactly the attraction of the face itself.
I have to admit that I like the idea that the daughters of the pharaoh wanted to look like Nubian princesses, even if it was to persuade the people here to worship them. I don't want to interrupt your narrative, but I have to ask you this. How come you know so much about Nubia, man? You must, you're the blackest Egyptian I've ever seen.
Nubia doesn't have to make any effort for anybody to fall in love with her. She's a beautiful culture. She's a beautiful, informative culture. She gave us a lot. And when I came down from Alexandria to Aswan, to the beginning of the heart of Nubia, I decided I want to learn the language, I want to learn the songs, and I want to learn the dances, and most importantly, I want to know about those people, about their lives, about their history, about their culture, because they're part of me.
So you can marry one of the women, huh?
Exactly. if I got lucky.
This temple itself got lucky. In 1964, when the Egyptians started to build the Aswan Dam, it was moved here, block by block, to save it from being drowned. The Aswan Dam is modern Egypt's greatest engineering project, bringing electricity and water to the entire country. But it devastated Nubia, flooding 500 square miles of its land. When I look out over this lake, all I can think about is what we can't see. All the history of an ancient civilization that's been lost. Many of the people displaced by the dam now live in and around the city of Aswan. They still call themselves Nubians and are fiercely proud of their culture and history.
Surprise to me on this whole trip.
There's even a program on local television called Nubian Treasures, hosted by Ezra Dahab.
Stunningly beautiful.
You know, I'm an African American, and African Americans are all colors, sizes, and shapes. When I look at the Nubian people on this boat, it's the same. They're all colors.
Yes.
Some are dark, some are light.
But not all of them is Nubian, but I think it's most of them are Nubians. But Nubians have some special features of the face, of the color. But if I can see you, I can say if you are Nubian or not. Not only from the color, I think it's from the soul.
The soul?
Yes, from the soul.
How about me?
I think you are Nubian.
Yeah.
Definitely Nubian, yes. You look like Nubian men here in Aswan.
I do, really?
Yes, I think so. And most of them saying Salaam alaikum, good morning to you. They think that you are from Aswan and you're Nubian.
I like that. You know, African Americans are obsessed with Nubia. They love Nubia. They want to. They don't even know where Nubia is, but the one thing they know is that there's black pharaohs and it ran Egypt. And they think that it's the greatest of all the black peoples, the Nubian people.
Yes, because Nubia is a part of Africa, and the African people, they are a part of Africa. I think their hearts, although they are living in America, I think their heart is, a piece of their heart is still in Africa.
Ezra has brought me to the only Nubian village that survived the flood. It's called Garb Aswan.
Hey, the fruit is nice, huh?
This village, I can say that it looks like the traditional Nubian village. All the Nubians are like the Nubians in the ancient villages. They still, till now, talking with the Nubian language. They still, till now, wearing the Nubian clothes. They still, till now, having their tradition in all the occasions of their life. Traditions on wedding and celebrating.
They say the same.
Yes, yes.
Since the loss of their land, younger Nubians like Ezra are determined to preserve their own language and culture and want to find out more about their ancient history.
This area which the Nubia, the real Nubia, was there. And now it's under the water. Yes, because the water covered every place there. Just the monuments, we could save it, and the people.
When I was a little boy, and the dam was being built, it was famous. People talked about it all over the world. But the black Americans in my hometown were very angry because they said it was racist. And I remember a woman, a school teacher, started a campaign to try to save Nubian culture because she said that the only reason they were building it here was to bury Nubian culture because Nubians were the black people. Does it make you angry that Nubian civilization is buried under that lake?
Not angry, but it makes me sorry. Because I dreamed that one day I could visit this place. I dreamed that if I could have the chance to live even one day in the ancient Nubia, because my father told me many things about it, my grandfather and mother, and all the history books, or all the books which talking about the Nubia. And when I see the pictures of the Nubia and the palm trees which the water is covering till the end, sometimes I cry.
Yeah.
Ezra wanted me to see where most Nubians live today. Balana was one of the villages specially built by the government 35 years ago for refugees from the flood.
How far from the river are we?
From the river? Yes, it's about 2 kilometers out. It's not on the river.
No.
No, it's not on the river directly. No.
So it's a long way?
Yes. Yes. They lost their close relationship with the Nile because in the ancient Nubia, most of the houses were on the Nile. Just few steps to let your feet touch the Nile waters.
68 tourists were killed by Islamic terrorists just a few weeks before I arrived, so security is tight. To be honest, I'm not sure who I'm more afraid of, these guys or the terrorists.
ازيك يا فوزية؟
اهلا اهلا وسهلا
ازيك؟
اتفضل
السلام عليكم.
عليكم السلام ورحمه الله
This is
وبركاته
فوزية.
اتفضلوا
Ezra was determined that I would meet Fawzia Suleiman, whose family lost their home to the flood when she was only 9 years old.
Once the dam was completed, what effect did it have on your family and the other Nubian people? Did it cause your family pain, distress? Did it make her sad to have to move her family?
لما حصل ان انتوا تهجرتوا يعني هل حسيتي مثلا ان عيلتك اتأثر؟
أثرنا ولا حاجة احنا بعد ما جينا استلمنا الأراضي
She's saying that the benefits of the high dam more than anything they lost there.
وزرعناه يعني الفلاحين العاديين عندنا طبعا
There is no pain for her family for moving from the ancient Nubia to the modern Nubian villages. She's very happy because now she has the chance to educate, to learn, and her children are in the school learning.
That's good.
And she hopes that she will learn like them one day.
But do you miss?
Now I'm confused. She wasn't supposed to say that. She was supposed to be against the dam. But there's a policeman in the background.
في يعني دايما بيحصل لي انا لما بعمل لقاءات مع ناس كتير بتقعد هنا لما باجي في ناس بيقعدوا اسمعيني في ناس بيزعلوا في ناس حتى بيقعدوا لما بيفتكروا الحاجات دي بقى.
This nice lady clearly has been programmed by the security police that are outside protecting us from terrorists or the threat of terrorism to say that building the dam was the greatest thing in her life, when in fact it was devastating to her and to her family and to her neighbors, all of whom were forcibly removed and dumped in this makeshift village.
Once the policeman leaves, Fawzia calms down.
The older people, did it upset them? Did it make them angry? Did it hurt them when they were forced to move?
قولي لي يا فوزية الناس الكبار يعني لو فاكرة ساعتها أيام التهجير كده الناس الكبار
الحاجات كلها اللي نزل بالركايب واللي نزل
She says that most of the old people during moving they were crying and saying goodbye our land or afialogo in the Nubian language afialogo afialogo yes that's mean afialogo بلدني goodbye our land
كل حاجة كل حاجة
She says she missed everything.
It's become clear to me that I'm not going to find ancient Nubia here in Egypt. South of here in the Sudan, I've heard that ancient Nubian cities have survived out in the desert. It's just my luck that the border's closed. So I've got to go all the way back to Cairo, then fly south to Khartoum before driving north again on a 2,000-mile round trip to the heart of ancient Nubia. My family and my friends think that I'm out of my mind to be going to the Sudan. All we ever hear about the Sudan is that it's in a state of civil war, it has a fundamentalist Islamic government, and it hates Americans. So I'm kind of nervous.
It took 2 hours to fly here from Cairo. It took 4 hours to get out of the airport because of the very strict security, and more forms than you've ever seen. I'm holding all my permission forms, permission to enter